Right, everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've done some NFL content, but I'm looking to do something every week now, weekly preview and hopefully weekly recaps. We're going to be doing weekly preview right now. Obviously, it's Thursday night, October 23rd. The Minnesota Vikings lost on the road, a shellacking 37-10. Chargers dominated that entire game. Justin Herbert shook off a near pick six to start the game, and just that was kind of the thing that got the nerves out of the way, right? And from there on, it was all Chargers. So with one game in the book for Week 8, that is what we have. There are going to be 6 teams on bye: the Detroit Lions, Las Vegas Raiders, LA Rams, Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's start our preview here. I'm going to try to get here through as quick as possible. I know there's a lot of people you can watch, and if you're watching me, a low end YouTuber at this point, but I have a lot of ball knowledge. Trust me, and my subscriber count, I'm trying to get that up. Just a little bit about me. I have a background in journalism, video editing, yada yada yada. Uh, and I've followed football my entire life. I keep notes. I have dozens of pages of notes in Google Docs. And I'm going to base today's analysis off of what I've taken notes on this year so far, what I know about the game, and what we see on some previews and stuff like that, as far as, and what I could recall for the season. And I'm going to use this sheet here from Sam Hoppin, NFL data scientist at ESPN Bet. I like a lot of his analytics and a lot of the stuff he shares. So let me give him a quick shout out. I do not know him personally. I've just been following him on X for a while now. And he has this team performance by various components. You could see the 7 here. This is what I'm going to analyze these games off of and who I think is going to come out on top. So we're going to start with Miami and Atlanta. The Falcons and Dolphins here. The Dolphins are 1-6. Falcons 3-3 at home. Dolphins are just one of the worst teams in the NFL. Their only win is against the actual worst team in the NFL, record-wise, the New York Jets, who are 0-7, and then Atlanta 3-3, coming off of a disappointing loss, if you can call a road loss disappointing, against a team like the 49ers. I just think the Niners were depleted, but they still found a way to win thanks to Christian McCaffrey. Anyway, the Falcons coming off that loss. Michael Penix Jr. was hit pretty hard in that game. He's questionable, so we'll see if he plays. But the Falcons, you look at their EPA breakdown. Pass offense has been above average. Rush offense, which you would think with the two-headed monsters, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, it hasn't been great. Just a little bit below average. Pass defense hasn't been good. Run defense, a little bit better, which is surprising in the pass defense because their pass rush has been the best they've had in like forever, right? So and they're getting some turnovers. Special teams has really killed them. You know, that kicking problem they've had with Younghoe Koo to John Parker Romo for the majority of the season now. Anyway, let's go to the Dolphins. They're probably pretty awful in a lot of categories. Their EPA and passing offense is surprisingly high. You see it down there where my magnifying glass is. But the pass defense has been horrific. So whether it's Michael Penix Jr. or Kirk Cousins, with the weapons that they have, and of course Robinson is a dual threat out of the backfield as a sorry, I was checking, making sure my mic was on, out of the backfield. So as a pass catcher, I think the Falcons will go back on track in this game, especially against a weaker Miami defense, and everything's just falling apart for the Dolphins. Report came out this week. I don't know the source. I could probably Google it or X search it real quick. But Mike McDaniel seems like his job is pretty secure, even though they're 1-6. I think they would have probably fired him by now. Yeah, I don't remember where the report was on X, but yeah, you see just the shade here from Bleacher Report. Mike McDaniel's expectations are simple. don't throw 10 picks on starting Tua in week 8. Yeah, Tua, I think there was also a video that circulated this week where he threw an interception while an update was being given about him throwing a pick six in another game on CBS. So, yeah, things are not looking great for the Dolphins. And if I were to give you my prediction, Atlanta gets right and gets over 500. You know, as it's the lead in this article is that the Falcons are looking to fix their red zone woes. I do think that Michael Penix Jr. needs to, if he does play, expand his passing tree to throughout the field. You know, he's just a kind of one-dimensional most of the time where he throws to the outer hashes. He needs to be more courageous throwing over the middle. So anyway, I do think though this is a get right game for Atlanta and they win this one. Over to New York and Cincinnati, the aforementioned Jets, the only team not to win a game yet this year, and the Bengals, who have gotten a spark from Joe Flacco. Of course, that game last Thursday night where they beat beat the Steelers and saved their season. Cincinnati, I think they win this one. Let's look at how the matchup is on. So the only glaring weakness, and it's pretty bad if you're looking at Hoppin's stats against Sam Hoppin, made this nice chart for football fans. Go follow him on X. I do not know him personally, but you see, this is his page, just so everyone knows. I'm giving him credit. Sam Hoppin. Uh, yeah, the Bengals, pretty bad at everything, but like hovering around average. And then you look at their pass defense, it's been atrocious. Probably don't have to worry about that too much against the Jets because they've set football back about 70 years and not been able to throw the ball forward. I think, what do they have, negative 10 passing yards overseas against the Broncos a few weeks ago. So I don't think you have to worry much. Who's even starting? Is it going to be Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor? Yeah. Well, first of all, Justin Fields kind of just has to shrug that off. The criticism from Woody Johnson earlier this week, where he basically said Aaron Glenn isn't the head coach of the Jets, first year head coach, isn't really doing anything wrong. Justin Fields has to play better. And things have gone from bad to worse. The Jets have actually played in 5 one-score games, and obviously have lost all of those. So it looks like Justin Fields is going to, from the CBS headline, he's unbothered, and it looks like he is actually going to start on Sunday. I don't know if that makes much of a difference. The Jets' defense has been pretty atrocious this year compared to what you would think of the Jets the last several years, or when they had Robert Saleh at least, because of course he was ousted so early last year that you can't really even say the last year or so. Um, yeah, I think the Jets are probably going to lose this game, and their defense is just, it used to be kind of a calling card for them, even when they were struggling, and it kept them hovering around an average to a little bit below average football team. But their pass defense has been pretty bad this year, as you see there at the bottom. Run defense, okay, but the Bengals don't really rely on the run a lot. They're going to rely on a lot of throws from Joe Flacco to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like we saw last Thursday night. The Jets are just not in a good spot, and I do not feel confident in picking them to win any games until they win a game. And it's just imploding for them. So, yeah, picking the Bengals to win that game, they get back to 500. Jamar Chase and Joe Flacco, along with T. Higgins, that passing attack gets it done. The main thing, if anything, I'm worried about for the Bengals is their inability to protect the quarterback. That's been a problem now for several years. Of course, it's led to Joe Burrow getting several injuries. All could be righted a little bit, at least. I shouldn't say all, but they can right the ship even more, get back to 500, and get 1 week closer to getting Joe Burrow back. So far, my picks are Atlanta and Cincinnati winning at home for the first 2 games. Another noon game, we got New England hosting Cleveland. When we take a quick peek at this game, the Browns, they've had their 2 wins have been impressive, right? The way they won last week, just completely blowing out the Dolphins. Now, the team they beat, not impressive. The fashion they did it, pretty impressive for a team that was 1-5 entering that game. Both teams were 1-5, right? And then their other win was against the Packers, uh, one of the better teams in the NFC, and they were like, oh my god, the Packers are going to the Super Bowl this year. At the time they played each other, because I think that was that week 3, and they were 2-0, and everyone's like, oh, they look amazing. Yeah, that was week 3. Packers, Packers, Packers. They embarrassed the Lions week 1, and then they play the Browns. Browns defense plays well, so yeah, Cleveland is not a slouch. That 2-5 is a pretty strong 2-5 because of the way they've won their 2 games. Their defense is talented, obviously. They got a lot of young players, a lot of juice there for the Browns. Quarterback is obviously the question. Dillon Gabriel will be making his, I believe, 4th start of the season. So we'll see if he can continue. I think it's his 3rd start, actually. Of course, Joe Flacco's former team. Flacco made the starts up until Gabriel took over. A lot of youth for both of these teams. So it's probably going to come down to the quarterback position, and Drake May's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe the best in the last couple of weeks, but overall one of the best for sure in 2025. I would probably lean towards the Patriots in this game. You look at this EPA pass offense, they're the only team above 100. Look at that, 101.6, and a lot of that has to do with Drake May finding his groove as a quarterback with the Patriots, so I think New England gets this done pretty easily at home. The only thing that would make me cautious about this game is the Patriots were at home and lost to the Steelers. The way they lost that game with 5 turnovers and turning the ball over might be a problem for them. That's the only way I could see the Browns sticking around in this one. But again, I'm taking the home team, New England. So far, none of these matchups are great. The first 3 games, you got 3 of the worst teams in the NFL playing against each other, or playing not against each other, but Miami, New York, and Cleveland, probably all going to hold a top 10 pick in the draft. So, yeah. So far, I got Atlanta, Cincinnati, New England. Let's go to Philadelphia, New York. The Giants, just one of the worst losses in NFL history as far as blowing a game last week. The Broncos had like a 99.9% chance of losing that game halfway through the 4th quarter, down 26-8, and then the Giants just completely trick it off and lose a mile high. And that's coming off a win they had against the Eagles the Thursday night before. So just 17 days ago, the Eagles lost at the Meadowlands in a pretty convincing fashion. If you're a Giants fan, and they'd be 3-4 right now, playing the Eagles for the second time in 3 weeks, looking to get the season sweep and get back to 500. That's just how bad of a loss that was against the Broncos. The Eagles looked good against Minnesota. Jalen Hurts got that nice passing game against the Vikings. A couple long passes to A.J. Brown. And I think he had one to Devontae Smith, too. Let's just look at the stats from that game really quick if we can. Box score, we had Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both over 100 yards. Devontae Smith had 183 on 9 receptions. And he was targeted 11 times. So if we get that kind of, if the Eagles can get that kind of production out of those guys, then they'll shut up a lot of people around the NFL, fans wise, critics wise, all that. I would probably take the Eagles in this game. They're the champs, and they got embarrassed by the Giants a couple weeks ago. So probably taking the Eagles in this one. Let's look at the EPA stuff. Any mismatches stand out for these teams? Obviously, it was an upset a couple weeks ago. So the Eagles have been hovering around average in pretty much every category. Here, they're actually exactly average in special teams. Their highest strength has been passing offense, according to these numbers, and they get turnovers. So if they can force a turnover or 2 from Jackson Dart, that'd go a long way for them. And we're going to just trying to think of alphabetical order by city, right? I'm looking at the team names, but it's not by city. Giants. Let's see, Indianapolis, New Giants. Okay. The Giants' defense has not been very good this year, and they're prone to penalties. So it'll take an explosive game from Jackson Dart and Scadaboo and those guys, and maybe a couple turnovers from a talented defensive line or something like that for the Giants to hang in this game. Because although they just beat the Eagles, I don't know if they can do it again. So yeah, I'm taking the Eagles again, taking the home team against an opponent who has not been the best so far this year, even though the Giants just beat them. Bills and Panthers. Doesn't look like Bryce Young is going to play. Let's see if there's any update as of Thursday, as I'm doing this live. Didn't participate in Thursday's practice. So signs are starting to point towards Andy Dalton starting this game. Josh Allen is 7-0, as you see that headline right there, following a bye week. So all things are pointing towards the Bills getting back on track after a 2-game losing streak before the bye. So I'm probably going to take the Bills in this one. The Panthers have been one of the better stories in the NFL. Carolina, the pass defense, not good. And the Bills are going to be looking to get that going again because they had a lethargic performance that Monday night before the bye week against the Falcons. And then let's look at the Bills, actually. Their pass offense has been one of the better ones this year. Obviously, got Josh Allen and his weapons. He likes spreading the ball around. I would like to see him get Keon Coleman going again because him and Coleman aren't really connecting. As you look at the receiving yard leader for the Bills, it's Dalton Kincaid, who's actually questionable for this game. But yeah, I think the Bills will probably win this one. It'll be the first road team to win out of all these games that I'm picking. So yeah, Bills win this one. I would think mostly just because Josh Allen and all the guys, all his weapons are going to get back on track against the Panthers pass defense that has not been great this year. Look at that, negative 44.4 as far as let me see, negative 44.4 EPA. According again, these stats are compiled by Sam Hoffman of ESPN Bet. I have no affiliation with him. I'm just showing them because to me, they encapsulate the best way to measure teams. So yeah, taking Bills there. That's my first road team to win. Baltimore and Chicago. Man, let's look up Lamar Jackson real quick. I believe Lamar Jackson, I saw a report earlier that said he might actually not play in week 8, but we'll see. The Ravens really need him because this is like a playoff game for them. And they have just been atrocious on both sides of the ball without Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he doesn't play defense, but their defense has been bad all year. And then you compile that with nothing on offense from Cooper Rush. Just been a mess. And if they don't win this game, I think their season's over. The Bears, on the other hand, are 4-2, and they're an upstart team in the NFL. Their passing offense is starting to come along, and Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are working well together. They turn the ball over. Look at the turnovers, plus 63.2 on turnovers this year as far as EPA goes. So I assume, and why would I assume when I have the internet, right? Really quick for you guys, I'm going to find this. I bet they have the most turnovers in the NFL on defense. Let's see. Or at least the best turnover differential, plus 11. So the Bears are getting turnovers quite a bit. And what are the Ravens as far as turning the ball over? Now, we know Lamar Jackson does not throw any interceptions or anything, but they're -7. Some of that was Derrick Henry's fumbling early in the season and all that. But you see, they've thrown 5 interceptions and given away 5 fumbles, and they're not turning the ball over on defense or getting turnovers on defense. So that's where I think this one could become a kind of a this is where the Ravens will lose this game, especially if Lamar Jackson's not playing. Turnovers, right? The Bears have ball hawks all over the field, and the Ravens, look at that, 11 interceptions. The Ravens just haven't been taking care of the ball well. 16 total takeaways for the Bears. If Lamar Jackson plays, I still think it's going to be tough for the Ravens to win, but I would pick them to win. If he doesn't play, I'm going to take the Bears to win their fifth straight game. Who would have thought that the Ravens would need this game more than the Bears when they looked at the schedule before the season? So, yeah, I'm taking the Bears if Lamar Jackson doesn't play. If he plays, I'm taking the Ravens. On the safe side, I'm probably going to be taking the Bears. If I were a betting man, I'm not a betting man. I'm just giving advice and trying to give you maybe some nuggets in there as a football fan. Here we go. 49ers and Texans. The 49ers are probably like the most hard fought for 5-2 team in the NFL. I mean, take a look at who they've lost this season. It's well documented. I don't even have to tell you, right? They lost Nick Bosa and Fred Warner for the season. On the offensive end, George Kittle's only played like 5 quarters, the first or second quarter, maybe 2 quarters of the first game, and then played last week against the Falcons. So, I mean, the Niners have been hit with the injury bug off and on throughout Kyle Shanahan's career there as the head coach. They'll be playing the Texans. The Texans are just an operation offensively that is mind-boggling. And CJ Stroud just does not look like the guy he was when he was a rookie. The offensive line is not helping him out at all. He's also not hitting some of his throws, too. I watched some of that game Monday night against the Seahawks, and it was just like when you play Madden and you're playing from behind and you're just trying to throw deep routes, go routes that aren't connecting. The offensive line doesn't block at all, really. Run blocking either, because look, I mean, at least their passing offense, according to these numbers, is a little bit above average. But you look at the rushing offense, Nick Chubb isn't really getting anything done for them. What's the word? And pardon me for sounding like a casual here, because I don't know. Is Joe Mixon even close to playing this year? I think he was supposed to miss the majority of the season, right? Yeah. So Joe Mixon has a mysterious injury, according to Sporting News. This was 9 hours ago in USA Today. When will Joe Mixon return? Yeah, so their run offense has not been good this year. There's no clear return date for Mixon, so he's not going to play Sunday for sure, right? I don't think there's going to be a miraculous turnaround where he plays. And then Mac Jones is still starting for the Niners. So anyway, yeah, back to the Texans real quick. They got DeMeco Ryans playing his mentor Kyle Shanahan for the first time, and they might know each other a little bit better. I don't know how much that factors into this game specifically. Uh, and the Texans, another thing, they're look at those penalties. Look at that, minus 27.6, one of the worst penalized teams as far as how it affects their game in the NFL. So they're not disciplined. Special teams are good. Kymie Fairbairn's one of the better kickers now, especially this year. So I don't know. How does that match up against the 49ers? Niners pass offense has been good this year with Mac Jones the majority of the time, right? Run offense has not. In fact, up until last game, even last game was sort of a struggle towards the end. But I mean, the first 3 quarters, McCaffrey was just gashing the Falcons. But before then, I don't think they had a rushing touchdown in a game. And then all of a sudden, McCaffrey's just going for 8 to 10 yards on every run. And even Brian Robinson had a few nice runs. So if they can continue that rushing offense, then but you're playing a Texans team, as you look at the CPA here, is a positive EPA wise, which is a good thing for them. So their defense has been, when you look at those numbers, is almost exactly average if you put those two things together: pass defense and run defense. And DeMeco Ryans is going to have a proud bunch of players on defense. It's just this comes down to who's the better quarterback. I think it's a cliched thing to say in the NFL. every week. But Mac Jones is inconsistent. Sometimes he'll make beautiful throws over the middle. Like, man, how many guys can make that throw with some zip on him? And then he'll fumble the ball the next play. It's kind of like to me, he's a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo. Uh, what Jimmy Garoppolo was at times with the Niners. As far as I think he makes the boneheaded plays, but he also has a better arm than Garoppolo did. He's willing to take a little more risk than Garoppolo. Garoppolo, when he was with the Niners, was more of like oh my God, that was such a stupid throw right over the middle. Like there was Jimmy G interception every week where you're like, oh man, really? Why'd you throw to that guy? Uh, and the guy wasn't even anywhere really near the play sometimes. It's like he was anticipating a route to be there and it was an option route or something and he threw it completely on the opposite side of where the guy was running. Like if he was running the curl to a hash or an option route towards the sideline, he would throw towards the middle of the field. Anyway, Mac Jones isn't quite that bad, but he still makes some boneheaded throws and fumbles more than Garoppolo did. All of that to say, Mac Jones is what the Niners needed as a backup. And I don't know if the buzz of him stirring up controversy for when Brock Purdy comes back, but I don't know how legit that is. But I do think he can do enough to win this game. Houston, as I said with Baltimore, a team that Houston beat earlier this year, their season could kind of be on the line here. The Niners, West Coast team playing in the Central Time Zone. I don't think that makes too much of a difference. If I had to pick, oh man, the Niners going 6-2 with all the injuries they've had would be great for them. And they have, contrary to last season, a tiebreaker against all the teams in the NFC West. Last year they got dominated by those teams. This year they're 3-0. This would go a long way in the making the playoffs, even though it's been kind of a crazy season. So many other franchises and teams would have folded with the injuries they have had. I want to pick the Niners to win this game. They're going to have to rely on McCaffrey a lot. They're going to have to, I don't even know, is Pearsall even close to playing? Questionable with the PCL injury. I don't know. Obviously, Ayuk is on the pup list. Lenore would be a big factor if he doesn't play.
Scary story out of the.
Pearsall didn't play or didn't practice on Thursday. Nico Collins is questionable with a concussion for the Texans. I'm leaning towards taking the 49ers in this game. I just think they have momentum, even though the laws of health are trying to stop that momentum. But yeah, I'm taking the 49ers to win this game. So the last two picks I've made, or the last three picks have been road teams. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. For some reason, this game is on at 3:05. I only say that because usually, I guess not all the time, but the late window is saved for more competitive games. Maybe not the 3:05 games, 3:25 for sure, like kind of the doubleheader games, right? The Saints. Spencer Rattler has not been awful for them this year. Let's take a look at how their passing offense has been compared with these EPA stats. So plus 17.2, a little bit above average. Rushing offense has not done anything. And they lost their backup running back. I can't think of his name right now, but Devin Neal from Kansas is going to have to be the backup now behind Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller. Yeah, so he was showing some pop this year and has been the last several years, right, for them. Some pop is maybe a stretch, but they try to mold him into a good backup for Alvin Kamara, and this is on track to be his best season so far. Hopefully, he can get back in his career. Obviously, that ACL injury is going to cost him the rest of the season. Anyway, I think the Buccaneers bounce back. They obviously had a disappointing game against the Lions Monday night. Baker Mayfield, any MVP discussion he's been in, which maybe he's been the leading candidate. That kind of took a dent against the Lions. Still, though, I think Tampa Bay wins this game. Not having Mike Evans will hurt them. I believe he's not playing, right? I mean, didn't he have a pretty serious injury? Let's see, Mike Evans. Him and Godwin have been hurt. Surgery, broken collarbone. Okay, 8 weeks or fewer. So yeah, he's out for a while. So no Mike Evans. Egbuka has been great this year, especially as a rookie. First few games kind of tailed off a little bit since then, but still been the Bucs' best option. I think Buccaneers win this game. They get to 6-2. I don't know if there's any much else to say about this. I don't think Spencer Rattler will do too much to lose this game. It's just overall lack of not being able to help win so much as actually actively losing the game for them. Denver and Dallas. Denver coming off that huge comeback win, right, against the Giants at home. The Cowboys are 3-3-1. 3-3-1 is not really impressive, but after all the turmoil, and there's always going to be turmoil somehow with the Cowboys, I think they're starting to settle in and be a solid team. Javonte Williams, kind of given up on by the Broncos, has been a very good option. One of the better running backs in the NFL. Look at that, 592 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns this year. George Pickens is starting to come into his own, and I believe CeeDee Lamb looked pretty impressive in his first game back. They put up 44 against the Commanders. Dan Quinn, former Cowboys coordinator, head coach for the Commanders now. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb had 5 for 110 on 8 targets and a touchdown. Pickens and him could be one of the better wide receiver duos. And Dak Prescott, for as much criticism as he gets, can't get over the hump, yada, 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 Cowboys quarterback, all the attention he gets, he has been a very good quarterback. And even better this year than in the past. This could be one of his best seasons. Denver, what do we know about Denver? They protect the quarterback well and they get after the quarterback, right? Bo Nix had a shaky start to his season, but he's been a lot better the last couple of weeks. Kind of how that game was, right? Microcosm in that Giants game. Struggled to begin and then came on late. J.K. Dobbins has been a nice addition, kind of softening the blow of losing Javonte Williams. So this game, I think Denver always has such an advantage playing at altitude. And that defense, I think this one's going to come down to the Cowboys secondary being so bad. Last week, they played the Commanders without Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and Noah Brown. This week, they're not going to be as lucky. Courtland Sutton is, to me, one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. And then the Broncos they protect the quarterback well, which will give them more time to throw the ball. And the Cowboys secondary has been awful. So that's where my mismatch would be here. Let's see if the Cowboys passing defense has been minus 84.4. So yeah, a lot of explosive plays for other teams. And then the Broncos, any glaring weaknesses for them? Penalties, that's it basically. And they've been around average at everything else, a little bit above average on passing offense. And that's really been in the last couple of weeks. And then obviously the Cowboys have had a better passing game. And that's without CeeDee Lamb half the time. So this will probably be one of the better games of the week. In fact, this is probably the best game of the week. As far as urgency goes, Chicago and Baltimore, given that Baltimore is, especially if Lamar Jackson plays, it's a playoff game either way, but if Lamar Jackson plays, one of the better games. And the Bears being on a 4-game winning streak. Yeah. That might be the best game of the week, but I think competitiveness wise and what you might see two franchises with a lot of fans that are hungry for wins, and Denver atop the AFC West. Dallas, 3-3-1 with after losing Micah Parsons and all the drama this year, and the fact that they're still in the hunt in the NFC East. It's a big game, probably the best game of the week. So I'm gonna take though Denver at home. Just think the way they won that game last week and all that. I think it's gonna be a shootout though. Denver has a good defense, but Dak and Pickens and Lamb, they get their stuff going and they get after it too. It's really a toss up for me. I just give the team with home field, especially at a mile high, the advantage here in the win. Again, that's probably the best game of the week, Dallas and Denver. Titans and Colts, not going to spend too much time on this one. The Colts, they're giving off to me as far as you have this team every once in a while, or at least probably like once a year, maybe once every 2 years. That's just like, oh, they came out of nowhere, you know. And this year it's the Colts, 6-1. Daniel Jones is having a career year, a nice renaissance. Think Sam Darnold, kind of renaissance. Baker Mayfield was already kind of good at the beginning of his career, then tailed off. Now he's back up on an upward trajectory. So yeah, but Daniel Jones is back. Uh, actually, I say that, and he's actually not back. This is the best he's been. Of course, he did make the playoffs a couple years ago with the Giants. But yeah, Daniel Jones is just thriving with Shane Steichen. Steichen, I believe is how you pronounce it. So yeah, the Colts, I think they go to 7-1. They're just running teams over. Their offense has been so efficient. Heard on the radio the other day, they've averaged like 3.5 points per possession, and anything over 3.5 points per possession is just like or anything over a field goal possession is absolutely insane. They didn't punt for like the first 10 quarters or something of the season. If anything, as you look at this chart, their weakness is pass defense. So Cam Ward, he'll need to take advantage of that if the Titans want to stick around in this game. How did they look last week with Mike McCoy and against the Patriots? I believe that game the Titans were like hanging in there the first half and then just kind of tailed off in the second half. Yeah, so it was 17-13 in the first half, and then a third quarter there. You look at the box score. Patriots just broke away. So the Titans, they'll be without L'Jarius Sneed for a while, which does not help their pass defense at all. They've been one of the worst teams in the NFL, but not in the way where like the Jets or the Browns have been. They're kind of, they have the number one pick and all that playing, and Cam Ward is talented. He's shown flashes. The way where it's been discouraging for them, and maybe it's a good thing that they got rid of Brian Callahan so soon. I, though, expect the Colts to move to 7-1 home against one of the worst teams in the NFL. And then Sunday Night Football, Green Bay and Pittsburgh. Man, wouldn't this one be so much more interesting? And it is interesting already, right? Two iconic franchises. Aaron Rodgers playing against the team I believe he's going to go in the Hall of Fame with. I mean, he holds a lot of crap against every team or both teams he's played for, right? But there's no way he doesn't go in as a Packer. This is the first time he's playing the Packers. The thing I was gonna say, the only thing that would make this better is if this game was in Green Bay. It's in Pittsburgh, so we won't get the LeBron James back in Cleveland kind of reaction, or the KD back in OKC kind of reaction, which those were crazy. I'm making a basketball reference there. I remember watching those live, especially the LeBron back in Cleveland when he was with the Heat for the first time. Ooh, that was crazy. We will not see that though. Rodgers is still going to be taking on his old team. Just the iconic franchises playing each other and all that. That's just a big storyline. And Sunday Night Football knew what they were doing. NBC knew what they were doing when they picked this game. The Steelers are the Steelers, though. Their defense is not as reliable as it's been, and I meant to stay on that EPA page. Hold on, let me go back. Their defense has not been as reliable as it has in the last several years, and how you would think under a Mike Tomlin defense. Take a look at those EPA numbers for the Steelers. So actually, they are plus 33.5 on turnovers. How much of that, I wonder, is turnover differential of Aaron Rodgers not turning the ball over? So let's see, where are the Steelers at? Pittsburgh is plus 5. Takeaways, how many takeaways do they have, though? not that takeaways are the number one. So they have 10 takeaways, and Rodgers has thrown 5 picks. So defense has not been as good in the last as it's been before. Jalen Ramsey's kind of been getting cooked, and the pass rush isn't getting there as well as it's been. So yeah, the pass defense is really the glaring hole. Rodgers has been good though. We let's not discount double check Mr. Rodgers. He has been good. That's an old State Farm reference for you guys. I am a very late stage millennial as far as almost Gen Z. So if you're like me, you remember those discount double check commercials before Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were on there. It was Aaron Rodgers and BJ Raji. Wow, that's a throwback name. Old defensive tackle for the Packers. Anyway, 14 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Rodgers still doing it. And his former protege, let's talk about the Packers for a little bit. Jordan Love, 10-2. So limiting the interceptions as well. Green Bay, of course, had that one tie against the Cowboys and then lost against the Browns in a game that came down to the wire. Or else they'd be undefeated. So they've been impressive. Micah Parsons still hasn't really hit his stride yet with them. And what is the Packers' strength? Obviously, passing on offense, and they don't really have a weakness. Maybe he can clean up the penalties a little bit. I'm looking at that EPA stuff. Anyway, man, such a tough call here. I've been going with the home team, like most people would, looking at it when it's an evenly matched game. But look at the matchup predictors, even got it so close. I said that the game of the week would be Dallas and Denver. This is probably 1A and 1B with that one. I'm going to pick the Packers. I just think sometimes the Steelers lately, when they're in prime time, i.e. last week against the Bengals, they just somehow find a way to not get it done. So even though they're going to be at home, I think the Steelers or the Packers win this game. It'll be close though. It'll be worth the watch. It'll be worth staying up late for. I'm gonna be watching the Aaron Rodgers interview, all that, see how melancholy he is and all that. So I'm taking the the Packers to win that one. Okay, and then Monday Night Football, the Chiefs at home against the Washington Commanders. Gonna pick the Chiefs to win this one. The Commanders have just been hit with the injury bug so hard, and Kansas City is quickly rising up the ranks. This is their third straight home game.
8 wings,
And
5
add off. I just think, the Chiefs. It's not going to be really close. Marcus Mariota. So this is kind of giving away my fandom, and hopefully I don't lose subscribers. I'm not I was a diehard Chiefs fan before they won their Super Bowls, which is reverse, right? It's weird. It's probably a lot of bandwagons. Maybe some of the bandwagons suck the juice from me, but I'll always be a Chiefs fan. I just don't like to say it in public because people think it's just a lot of explaining to do. People think the refs help them all the time, blah blah blah, whatever it may be. But yeah, long story short, Marcus Mariota starting this game. Obviously, nobody's gonna have any sympathy for Chiefs fans nowadays. But I was at the wild card game in 2018 for the 2017 season when he threw that touchdown pass to himself, and the Chiefs blew yet another playoff lead. That was Alex Smith's last game. So for anybody like 18 or younger that doesn't know, Chiefs fans used to have it hard. It was painful. They were just good enough to make it hurt when they lost in the playoffs. So anyway, with that being said, they're not that bad anymore. In fact, they're the most hated team in the NFL by several metrics. But with Marcus Mariota starting this game and Jaden Daniels out with a hamstring, I think the Chiefs get this one done at home. I don't know how pretty of a win it'll be. Their offense does look a lot better than it has. Probably the best it's been since they won the Super Bowl against the Eagles. Was that the 2022-2023 season? And they don't have a Tyreek Hill, right? Rashee Rice came back last week. They don't have a Tyreek Hill. but they have three really solid options with Rice, Worthy, and Hollywood Brown. And then Travis Kelce even showing a little bit of juice in what I think is going to be his final season. If I were the Chiefs, I would make a move for defensive lineman, defensive tackle at the trade deadline. Of course, they lost some depth with Omar Norman Lott being out for the season. And it's a weird situation going on at corner, too, where kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. They paid a lot of money for Christian Fulton. He hasn't played really, and it's not because of injury. And they have Noel Williams, though. The positive of that is Noel Williams, a rookie out of Cal, has been pretty good for them. Anyway, I think the Chiefs get it done. I think Mahomes bolsters his MVP candidacy. And yeah, they win at home. Mariota, though, quickly is competent. He's not like one of these backups you throw in there, like, no offense, but how Jake Browning was for the Bengals this year. He's not going to be like that. He's going to run the offense well enough. He has a lot of the same tendencies as Jaden Daniels. Or Jaden Daniels has a lot of the same tendencies as him, shall I say, because Daniels is the younger one, even though he's a starter. So yeah, I don't think this game is a blowout, but I do think the Chiefs win, and it won't be like they did last year where it was like, oh, everything came down to the final play. Maybe it does, who knows? But I do think Kansas City wins this one. All right, so I'm going to head out here in a few minutes, but before that, let me recap who my picks are and why I picked them. But before, actually, I didn't look at the stats for each team. The Chiefs' passing offense has been really good. Look at that. They've been near average in everything else. Special teams is kind of weighed down by the fact that Harrison Butker has been pretty awful this year by his standards. And then the Commanders, kind of hard to read these stats when the starting quarterback's not playing. But Daniels let's see, he missed 2 games already this year. This will be his 3rd miss, I believe. They've been a pretty good offense. Hopefully for them, Deebo Samuel. Is McLaurin playing? Is McLaurin still not playing? I don't know. Let's check. McLaurin plays. That might be, that may make a difference. Obviously, he's one of the better receivers in the NFL the last 5 years. They practiced, according to Ethan Cadu of the MON Sportsnet. I don't know. I honestly don't know Monumental Sports Network. So obviously they cover DC teams. So they were both practicing today. So if they get McLaurin and Samuel back, that helps soften the blow of not having Jaden Daniels. I still think the Chiefs will win this game, though. All right. So back to a quick whip around of who I think is going to win and why. All right. Atlanta wins at home. Miami is just a mess. Atlanta stays on track to be interesting in December, and they get back on track, actually, because they lost to the Niners in Santa Clara. Cincinnati, New York. Again, I'm going to have to see more from New York before I pick them in any game. If there's one thing that concerns me about the Bengals, it's protecting Joe Flacco. But Cincinnati wins this one. New England, Cleveland. Cleveland's had a really good defense this year, but Drake May has been an MVP candidate, and I think the Patriots stay in first place. Giants and Eagles. Eagles win. The Eagles win this one. They bounce back from losing 2 weeks ago to the Giants. Such a heart-wrenching loss for the Giants. It might be close, though. I mean, because they won pretty convincingly towards the end of that game against the Eagles. Just the way they blew last week's game against the Broncos, I can't pick them. But I do think it's going to be an enticing game. Carolina, Buffalo. The Panthers are making a lot of positive strides. Who would have seen them at 4-3, right? And could have been 5-2 because they almost had a comeback win against the Cardinals, too. Anyway, Buffalo wins this one, though. Andy Dalton's going to be starting at quarterback for the Panthers. Josh Allen and the Bills get back on track in this one in Charlotte. Chicago and Baltimore, one of the trickier ones to pick just because you see those two teams and you just look at those logos and you think of the last 10 years and you're like, oh, easily Baltimore. But then you think, oh, Lamar Jackson's been hurt this year. Now it's getting more questionable whether or not he plays. And the Ravens are 1-5, and the Bears are 4-2, and they won 4 in a row with a new coach, and they're breaking some bad reputation the bad reputation they've had for years. I say if Lamar plays, Baltimore ekes it out. But if he doesn't, Chicago wins. That's a weak stance to take. But you know what? Now that we're here, I'm taking the Bears. And I think the Ravens is a lost season for them, and they lose. San Francisco and Houston, the Niners find another way to win. They go to 6-2. Nothing about the Texans, other than the game against the Ravens, has shown any sort of sign that they're a threat. I think their other win against the Titans, and they tried everything they could to lose that game too. So yeah, I'm taking the Niners. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. I'm taking Tampa Bay. They get it done. Baker Mayfield's been too good this year. Last week, I think, was a blip in the radar, and the Saints are just done nothing to make me think otherwise, that they'll be competitive in this game. That has been a rivalry in the past, but Mike Evans isn't playing and Marshawn Lattimore is no longer on the Saints. That used to be a crazy game to watch maybe a couple years ago. Dallas and Denver, I think one of the better games of the week, up there with Green Bay and Pittsburgh, probably the best game, Dallas and Denver. Denver, I'm going to pick at home. I think it's a shootout, even though Denver has a really good defense. Dallas has an awful defense, secondary, to be exact. And I don't think Dak Prescott just completely implodes. So yeah, that's going to be a shootout. And then Indianapolis, Tennessee. This one's obviously on paper one of the easier ones to pick. So I'm sure somehow the Titans will stick around late. But yeah, no way, no logical person, unless you're from the Nashville area, is going to pick the Titans. So Colts win that one. Packers, Steelers. Again, I wish this one was at Lambeau Field just to see Aaron Rodgers play against his old team in his old stomping grounds. I think Green Bay wins this one, just for the fact that Pittsburgh still is missing something. And Green Bay, I believe, is just the more complete team at this point. So student beats mentor. Jordan Love beats Aaron Rodgers. And then the Chiefs, they're going to win at home. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think, though, as far for the Commanders. I think Marcus Mariota will put up a nice stat line and have them hanging around the fourth quarter. So yeah, that's what I have for week 8. If you liked anything I said on here, please subscribe. I do enjoy talking about sports, and I'd like to do it more often. But in order for me to do that, I would like to have some feedback. So please let me know what you guys thought. Leave a comment, drop a like if anyone sees this. Thank you, and have a good week 8. Have a good evening, and have a nice weekend.